All right, welcome back. So this week we are reading Bell Hook's book, All About Love, specifically chapters 1 and 2. I just want to jump right into it and quickly summarize how Hooks is setting us up for this journey with her. So she says, imagine how much easier it would be for us to learn how to love if we began with a shared definition. So Hooks quotes Diane Ackerman's book called A Natural History of Love. And this is a quote from Ackerman's book. She writes, everyone admits that love is wonderful and necessary, yet no one can agree on what it is. And so then Hooks tells us that she spent years searching for a meaningful definition of what love is. And the closest thing that she could find was from this psychiatrist's self-help book called The Road Less Traveled by M. Scott Peck. And in that work, Peck defines love as, this is a quote, the will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth. Love is as love does. Love is an act of will, namely both an intention and an action. Will also implies choice. We do not have to love, we choose to love. Okay, and I just want to pause and say that this is the power of writing, right? This is the power of sharing words, of communicating, and of connection. Hooks says that learning faulty definitions of love when we are quite young makes it difficult to be loving as we grow older. So there's so much power just in that one sentence, right? That one sentence could heal 1,000 souls. That one quote from this book could help someone understand what has made them who they are and how they love and how their agency in the present has the power to heal the pain of the past, right? And as I'm recording this, my best friend actually just sent me a TikTok, and this is a best friend that I met at OSU, and our friendship changed my life in profound ways. And I actually have quite a few friends and mentors that I met at OSU that have all had incredibly deep impacts on my life and who I am today. But while all of the friendships were formed in Ohio, we actually came to OSU from all over the place. And so then one at a time, we left Columbus. So the TikTok that my friend sent me was from an account called Becca and Roses, and it talked about her best friend living far away from her. And she reads a message to us as viewers that she received from her best friend. And this is a quote from the best friend of the person that made a TikTok. She says, "You're meant to be there and I'm meant to be here. But my God, wouldn't it be sweet if here and there could merge? Instead of sending thinking of you texts and exchanging memes, I could just pop over with some fresh baked bread. And you'd say, come sit down, I'm brewing tea. Or I'd just be there while you fold laundry, and you'd be here while I clean out my closet, and we'd take for granted the fact that we can hug anytime we want." And I think this resonates so well with what we're talking about today with Bell Hooks. So Bell Hooks in All About Love challenges us to rethink love, critiquing especially how the entertainment industry, shaped by capitalist values, has conditioned us to prioritize romantic love, right? Heteronormative romantic love, while often neglecting or diminishing the importance of platonic and communal love and friendship, right? And so her concept of love, Hook's concept of love, is expansive and radical, and it pushes back against the commodified versions of love that currently dominate media and popular culture. And when we put Hooks in conversation with capitalist realism, as discussed by Mark Fisher, we talked about that last week, we can see how capitalist ideologies infiltrate our understanding of love, right? And remember, he says that under capitalist realism, everything should be run as a business. We look at everything as if it should be run as a business. So our relationships become very transactional, and it is seen as natural to be transactional. So Fisher argues that capitalism not only dictates economic structures, but also shapes our imagination, making it difficult to even imagine alternatives. So in the realm of love, this manifests as a narrow focus on romantic love as the ultimate form of fulfillment, promoted by capitalist media as something to be pursued and consumed. And so Hooks encourages us to resist this framing by embracing forms of love that build community and connection outside of the romantic paradigm. So capitalist realism would have us believe that romantic love is the primary site of intimacy, often sidelining the value of collective care and non-romantic bonds, right? And Fisher's critique of capitalism aligns with Hooks' insistence that we expand our emotional imagination, looking beyond capitalist prescriptions for love and fulfillment. So in this capitalist framework, the entertainment industry commodifies love, reducing it to a product or a fantasy that we must chase and that can be sold, right? And Hooks counters this by asking us to reorient our understanding of love, giving weight to the love that sustains community and solidarity and personal growth and personal growth beyond capitalist logic. The challenge then is to dismantle the idea that love is scarce or only valuable when it fits into capitalist ideals, recognizing instead that love can be a liberating force when it is shared collectively, right? Abundant love rather than love in scarcity. So Bell Hooks' critique of love ties directly to how patriarchy and heteronormativity and capitalism all work together. So the nuclear family model, which is one man and one woman and their children, that is central to capitalism, right? Capitalism benefits when individuals are isolated within their small family units, which requires them to rely on the market to meet their needs, right? When people are cut off from a broader community of support, like extended family networks and even communal living, where there is no relational ties, but there is that deep connection to living together. But when people are cut off from that and it's not an option, and then they have to rely on the capitalist system for survival. So capitalism thrives on this dependency because it creates a market for everything. The nuclear family ensures that people stay focused on their own immediate needs, and they are working to provide for their household rather than investing in community-wide forms of care and mutual aid that might actually challenge capitalist power structures. So the nuclear family model isolates people from each other because it emphasizes the idea that a small family unit, so parents and children, should be self-sufficient. And this means that love and care become privatized within the home, rather than something that is shared in public with community. And as a result, families become economically dependent on the system to provide for everything that they need. So they have to work long hours and they have to source out for childcare, and that keeps them busy and disconnected from their broader communities, right? And then obviously, this isolation weakens collective power, making it harder to imagine and therefore build alternative systems of support and care and solidarity that aren't tied to capitalism. So Bell Hooks argues that this setup also limits the ways that we understand and experience love. Capitalism and patriarchy push romantic love as the ultimate form of fulfillment, often at the expense of platonic love and community care and collective support. And so by centering our lives around the nuclear family, we lose the possibility of forming deeper, more expansive relationships with more people. And this not only maintains power dynamics within families, where obviously men often hold more control, but it also discourages solidarity across families and communities and forms of love. And because we're isolated and because we're dependent, it makes it nearly impossible for us to even have the time of day to imagine alternatives, right? To even imagine or build communities that are based on mutual aid and shared care and collective love, which are all models that would threaten the capitalist system. And the other aspect of it here is that capitalism promotes heteronormative family structures because they fit very neatly into the capitalist system of consumption. The nuclear family becomes a unit that buys homes and cars and insurance and other goods and services, right? And in a capitalist system, reproduction within the nuclear family model is directly linked to the creation of more consumers, right? The heteronormative family structure, which is centered on the idea of a man and a woman raising children together, that is promoted because it generates new generations of consumers to perpetuate that cycle of consumption, right? And at the same time, non-heteronormative or non-traditional forms of relationships, so queer and polyamorous or communal living, these all challenge this setup because they don't often follow the same patterns of consumption and promises of consumption. When couples reproduce, they add new consumers to the system, right? And from birth, children become targets for various markets, right? Diapers and toys and clothing and educational products and so on. And as they grow, their needs evolve, creating opportunities for companies to market a constant stream of products and services. And this doesn't just stop with childhood, right? Capitalism relies on a continuous life cycle of consumption. So as these children grow into adults, they begin to make their own purchases, homes, cars, insurance, and more, right? And then the cycle continues. So in the TikTok that I mentioned, the message speaks to a longing for closeness, everyday connection, and the type of love that isn't transactional, but rooted in simple shared moments, baking bread, folding laundry, just being there, being present, right? And this type of intimate, platonic, or communal love is exactly what Bell Hooks is advocating for. She encourages us to value all forms of love, not just romantic love, and to resist the ways that capitalism and patriarchal systems have isolated us from each other. And so the nuclear family model pushes us to invest all of our emotional and practical energy into our own households, leaving little room for broader networks of care that includes friends and mentors and neighbors and community members, right? And in the nuclear family, in its most ideal form, the expectation is that you have everything that you need. But as that TikTok shows, the reality is that many of us long for the closeness of friendships and communities beyond our immediate households, beyond our intimate partners. And this longing reflects the limitations of the nuclear family model. It isolates us, and capitalism benefits from this because isolated families are more reliant to buy things to meet their needs, right? And that part in the TikTok where she's talking about sending thinking of you texts and exchanging memes instead of being physically present also speaks to how capitalism has commodified connection. We are encouraged to replace real embodied relationships with virtual ones, often mediated by technology, right? And instead of being able to pop over and share bread or tea, we rely on digital interactions because capitalism in many ways has structured our lives in such a way that we are too busy or too far apart or too focused on productivity to make time for that kind of everyday deep presence that we long for. And capitalism encourages us to focus on our individual success and building nuclear family units because the structures are easier to control and profit from. But real connection, like the deep friendships that we've talked about so far, that can challenge this, right? When we build strong, loving relationships that go beyond our romantic or familial ties, especially when our romantic ties become embedded in the state, right? And become embedded into our finances for tax purposes. If we build strong, loving relationships that go beyond that, we are also creating networks of support that reduce our reliance on the market and buying things. So if you could just pop over to your friend's house with bread, they wouldn't have to go out and buy it, right? It would mean reclaiming a type of love and connection that isn't tied to capitalist productivity and efficiency, right? Instead of needing to buy things or pay for services in order to meet our needs or feel connected, we would rely on each other. And I want to emphasize that point of efficiency here, because slowing down gives us the chance to actually experience life rather than just consuming it. When you bake bread, you wait for the dough to rise and you feel the texture in your hands and you can smell the transformation as it is baking, right? And these moments can't be rushed, and they create space for reflection and presence. Slowness invites us to be present with our surroundings and ourselves, allowing us to fully feel the passage of time instead of just rushing through it on double speed, right? But capitalism reduces time to units of productivity, right? How much can you accomplish in the shortest amount of time? That is supposed to be what is best at all times, right? It's not how much can you accomplish in the shortest amount of time in regards to this task. It is literally how we are living our life at this point. And then we ask, how can we maximize efficiency even in our relationships, right? We went from handpicking flowers for our loved ones to buying flowers on our way home from work to getting flowers shipped and delivered, and we don't even touch them, right? And this shift from handpicking flowers to grabbing a bouquet on the way home to ordering flowers online and having them shipped, that perfectly captures how capitalism speeds up and simplifies and commodifies our relationships. And that gesture of giving flowers, which once involved time and effort and presence, has become just another transaction. It's quick and convenient, but it lacks the depth and personal touch that once made it a special act in the first place. So when we hand pick flowers, we're not just giving someone a gift, we're investing time and thought into the process. We notice the flowers. We select them with care and intention. Maybe we see one and there we say, oh, they would love this one. And then we see another one and we say, maybe not that one, right? And then we deliver them ourselves. That gesture feels intimate because it's a reflection of the time and effort we put into showing our affection. But over time, capitalism has conditioned us to seek out quicker and more efficient ways of expressing love. We can grab the prepackaged bouquets at a store on our way home from work, or we can even opt into the ultimate convenience of having the flowers shipped and delivered directly to someone's door without us even being there or even touching the flowers themselves, right? So time has been replaced by convenience, and thoughtfulness has been replaced by efficiency. And in doing so with this process, we risk losing the emotional depth that comes with slower, more deliberate acts of care. So Hooks would probably argue that this shift from handpicking flowers to outsourcing the gesture speaks to the way that capitalism dilutes love and relationships. And in a really dark way, we lose touch with the very relationships that we are claiming to nurture when we choose convenience over connection. And this mindset extends to how we live our lives, right? We move between jobs, homes, relationships, and even friendships with so much speed that we often don't even give ourselves the time to process what is happening or feel the impact of that loss or that change. We're trained to view slowness as inefficient or even lazy and to prioritize speed over depth. But this comes at a cost, right? One that Bell Hooks speaks to in her work on love and connection. So in her writing, Hooks explores the difference between cathexis and love. So cathexis is the act of investing energy into something or someone, whereas love is choosing to act in a way that aligns with care and commitment and responsibility. But today, we often don't even reach the stage of cathexis before we've moved on. Relationships are treated as something to level up from, whether it's romantic or platonic or even professional. There's this underlying pressure to always move forward, always upgrade, always glow up, right? And I would say that social media and reality TV capture this perfectly. relationships are transactional and people are using each other to elevate their status. And the goal is not connection, but efficiency, right? How can this relationship serve me quickly and visibly, performatively? I'm thinking about shows like Perfect Match and Too Hot to Handle and Love Island, which are extreme examples of this fast-paced, disposable relationship culture. Right, if you've never seen the show, these people move between romantic partners without ever truly connecting. They're literally swapping people out as if they are accessories. And emotional depth is sacrificed for the spectacle of speed, with relationships presented as something that can be won rather than nurtured. And this is a perfect metaphor for how capitalism views connection, not as something to be savored or cultivated, but as something to be optimized. So when Bell Hooks talks about the importance of having a shared definition of love, she's getting at the heart of how much words and the meanings that we attach to them shape our lives, right? The stories that we tell ourselves about love and the definitions that we're taught, they have real power. They can either lead us toward meaningful, fulfilling relationships or keep us locked in patterns of misunderstandings and hurt. The quote that I read from Hooks at the beginning of this lecture, the one that goes, "Learning faulty definitions of love when we are quite young makes it difficult to be loving as we grow older." That is so powerful because it gives us a way to understand our own histories. Many of us grow up in environments where love is conditional, where we associate love with duty, right? Or sacrifice or control. And without even really realizing it, they define how we approach relationships as adults. And we might find ourselves repeating patterns that don't serve us, not because we want to, but because we don't know any other way to relate to love. So by offering us an alternative definition, one that is rooted in spiritual growth and the conscious act of nurturing, Hooks, and by extension Peck, gives us a new framework. Right? It's a way to reclaim agency over how we love and how we allow ourselves to be loved. Peck's idea that love is as love does reminds us that love isn't just a feeling, it is an action, it is a commitment. It's something that we choose and commit to over and over and over. And that choice, that commitment, has the potential to heal the wounds of the past. And this is where the power of writing comes in. Words have the ability to articulate the truths that we might not have had the language to express before. Communicated messages like that and written moments like that, that is the beauty of sharing stories. It can validate our experiences and give us the tools to reshape our lives. It's a way to connect across time and space, to offer each other understanding and hope and healing. So in a world where so much of what we hear about love is commercialized or distorted, finding a definition of love that resonates can literally be life-changing, right? It helps us redefine our past, and more importantly, it gives us the power to shape our future relationships with more intention and care and awareness. And the act of writing, of putting these truths out into the world, holds immense potential to change not only individuals, but the collective understanding of what it means to love fully and deeply. This is another quote from Hooks. "In early adolescence, when we were whipped and told that these punishments were for our own good, or I'm doing this because I love you, my siblings and I were confused. Why was harsh punishment a gesture of love? As children do, we pretended to accept this grown-up logic, but we knew in our hearts it was not right. We knew it was a lie. Just like the lie the grown-ups told when they explained harsh punishment. It hurts me more than it hurts you. There is nothing that creates more confusion about the love in the minds and hearts of children than unkind and or cruel punishment handed out by the grown-ups they have been taught they should love and respect. Such children learn early on to question the meaning of love, to yearn for love even as they doubt it exists." So here Hooks is talking about how as children we're often taught through punishment that pain is a form of love. which leads to a lifelong struggle of understanding what love actually truly is, right? And this can make people question whether or not love is real, especially when those meant to care for us are also the ones who inflict harm. And the resulting doubt about love's existence can be deeply ingrained, making it hard to experience or even trust genuine affection. And Hooks points out how children are taught to confuse painful memories like being whipped with love. This confusion stems from a misunderstanding of love, one that is rooted in cathexis, an emotional attachment, rather than the deeper nurturing form of love that Hooks is advocating for. So cathexis alone, that emotional attachment alone, without the added elements of genuine care and respect, leads to relationships that can be harmful, where people hurt each other in the name of love. So again, I want to reiterate, Hooks distinguishes cathexis, that act of investing emotional energy into someone. She distinguishes it from genuine love, which involves care and commitment and respect. So many people confuse intense emotional or physical attraction with love, but as Hooks explains, cathexis without those deeper elements can lead to relationships that are more about temporary pleasure than long-term growth or care. True love, Hooks argues, involves care, commitment, knowledge, responsibility, respect, and trust. So again, reality TV shows like Perfect Match and Too Hot to Handle demonstrate the way that cathexis plays out in real life, particularly in hookup culture. And they highlight the challenges of mistaking emotional or physical intensity with real love, which, as Hooks argues, requires a lot more than just attraction and even just a wanting, right? Love is an action. It is not a wanting to act. It is an actual action. It is the act. So I just want to mention, related to Hooks, there's an artist named Tony Jones who has a lyric in a song that says, "I know love is real because I exist and I am full of it." And this lyric speaks to the idea that love isn't something to be earned. Instead, she turns inward, suggesting that the very act of her existence is proof that love is real. And this is a powerful rejection of the externalized conditional love that Hooks is critiquing. And right now in the back of my head, I'm also hearing Gloria Anzaldúa from another essay called A Letter to Third World Women Writers. Gloria Anzaldúa asks, who gave us permission to perform the act of writing? And she's saying who, as third world women, gave us permission to perform the act of writing. But I want to apply it to Hooks' work here. Hooks was an educator, an author, a feminist theorist, a cultural critic, and a social activist. And she was working within the academic sphere. She completed her bachelor's degree at Stanford and she finished her PhD from UC Santa Cruz. So who gave her permission to write this as an academic book? By completing her education and engaging with both mainstream and radical intellectual traditions, she is claiming her right to critique and contribute to these discourses. And the very act of writing, for Hooks and for Anzaldúa, becomes a form of resistance against oppressive systems. And this defiance asserts her right to write and challenge existing dominant frameworks. And I want to slow back down, and I want to just ask, what if we considered writing as an act of love? If love is, and this is a quote again from Hooks, the will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth, how can this apply to the conscious effort and choice and intentionality of writing? Writing, like love, becomes a means of nurturing connection, whether it's with oneself or with others, through the process of sharing thoughts and emotions and growth. Like love, writing demands effort and intentionality. It asks that we slow down and reflect and make deliberate choices about the words we use, about the stories we tell, and the way that we express ourselves. And through this process, we not only nurture our own growth by articulating our thoughts and our emotions, but we also create the potential for others to connect and empathize and grow from reading our work. And just like with hand-picked flowers, true connection requires presence. It demands that we slow down and notice and be with one another, not just through screens or rushed gestures, but in the everyday moments, the boring moments, right? Remember, Kimmer talked about in Braiding Sweetgrass, the power of ritual and ceremony, and anything meaningful is not in its historical accuracy or purity, but in its ability to transform the mundane into the sacred. So in the end, the love that Hooks talks about is about choosing to be present with each other, to reject the capitalist rush that tells us there's always something more important than our connections. It's about reclaiming those small, tender moments like folding laundry or simply just sitting together in silence. And it's about understanding that love in all of its forms is not a product to be bought or sold, but a practice that sustains us. So as we move through our lives, through careers and through cities and relationships, we should remember that love is not a feeling, but a choice. It's the will to extend yourself, to be present, and to resist the forces that try to isolate us from each other. Real connection is not something that we have to chase. It's something that we create every single day in how we choose to show up for ourselves and for each other. So slow down and choose to love. And in doing so, we're pushing back against the world that wants us to rush past the very things that make life meaningful. So in the beginning of this book, Hooks writes, and I'm talking, this is like in the dedication page maybe, but this is what she writes. The first love letter I ever wrote was sent to you, just as this book was written to talk to you. Anthony, you have been my most intimate listener. I will love you always. There's a passage in the Song of Solomon that reads, I found him whom my soul loves. I held him and would not let him go. To holding on, to knowing that moment of rapture, of recognition where we can face one another as we truly are, stripped of artifice, naked and unashamed. Writing is like that. It is an act of holding on to what matters, of facing the world and saying, I'm here and this is what I feel and this is what I know. And when we write, we're not just talking to ourselves, we're talking to the people who will hold on to our words, people who we might never meet, but who will see us and feel us and understand something of what it means to be human. The words that we choose and the stories that we tell, these not only shape who we are, but who we become. Writing in its deepest form is about unlearning those faulty definitions that we've been given. Remember, this was the quote from Hooks. Learning faulty definitions of love when we are quite young makes it difficult to be loving as we grow older. Writing in its deepest form is about unlearning the faulty definitions that we've been given about love, about life, and about who we're supposed to be, and rewriting them on our own terms. And when Hooks tells us that love is as love does, she's pointing to the power of intentionality. Writing, too, is an act of will. It's not going to happen on accident. You got to put the pen to paper, right? It is the choice to show up for ourselves, to nurture our own or another's spiritual growth, as Peck describes. And writing is not always easy, but it is always a choice to extend ourselves beyond the immediate and to capture moments of clarity, of confusion, of joy, and of sorrow. So that TikTok that my best friend sent me was about a message that expressed a longing for the days when those two friends could just show up with bread and fold laundry together and share quiet moments without the distance of a screen. And this sentiment is simple, but it cuts so deep. Writing is the same. It's about showing up even when we're far apart, even when we're busy, even when we could have Amazon deliver something overnight instead, or we can just have ChatGPT write our love letters for us. Writing is about creating something that takes time and brings us closer. And Hooks is challenging us to rethink love as something expansive, something that exists in community, in friendship, in solidarity. And writing can do the same. Words can be shared and they can resonate deeply. When we write, I want us to resist the pressure to be efficient, to be perfect, and to be what the world expects. Instead, I want us to slow down. I want us to bake the bread and fold the laundry and choose our words with care, knowing that what we create can nourish not just ourselves, but others as well. Writing is an invitation to pause and reflect and connect. So think about the power of your words. Think about the stories that only you can tell. Writing allows you to turn those moments into something that lasts, into something that touches people, even across time and space. And like the love that we long for, writing is a way to be present with others, to say, I see you, I hear you, I'm with you. So again, I just want to remind us that writing is more than just putting words on a page. It is a declaration of presence, a way of saying, I am here and this is what I believe. I hope you enjoy this reading this week. I hope it changes your life the way that it does mine. And I hope that this kind of writing and what we are writing about fuels some of your passion in terms of what you are wanting to create. So go crazy. I can't wait to read it.